Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for the weekly podcast show, a little bit later than usual. A lot going on with fixture congestion, a lot going on in life. Of course, it was Easter as well, which didn't help. And I was away getting married this weekend. So that's why there's been no content. So my apologies for that. I probably should have let it be known that it might be a struggle for me to do some content. But I'm back. The honeymoon is over, and Aston Villa fell to a 2-1 defeat to Manchester City last night in the 94th minute. So you can imagine this morning I was absolutely buzzing to come on and do a podcast on the game. Fortunately, I am buzzing to speak to my good friend David Reed, although I wish we could talk about anything but the game last night. And this show is sponsored by NordVPN. If you want to get a huge discount plus 4 months free, head to 1874/ what I cannot talk. You can tell I haven't done it for a few days. 1874.io/NordVPN, and it's completely risk-free because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Oh, Dave, I feel very, very flat after that last night. Once you get to the 94th minute, or 93rd minute, I suppose, as it was, you got to just make sure you come away with a point. A little bit like the PSG game. Make sure you come away only with the 1-goal deficit and you concede the second. And Sky, annoyingly, flashed up that stat, didn't they, about goals after the 90th minute? And as soon as that stat flashed up, I thought, oh no, that's the kiss of death. And it turns out that it was.
Yeah, very similar story to kind of what happened at PSG, really, with that late goal. And it has been a consistent theme, hasn't it, around goals conceded, 90 plus minutes. And strangely enough, actually, I thought when the second half started, I thought the longer this game goes on, and Manchester City might well continue to get frustrated and then more frustrated. I thought the longer the game goes on, the more chance we've got. But actually, it felt like the opposite happened. And the longer the game went on, it looked like Villa were more comfortable with taking a point from the game than maybe going out to win it. Maybe I'm being a little bit unfair. But it felt like as the second half progressed, Villa were more comfortable with taking the point, when actually I thought it would go the other way, whereby the longer it went on, Villa would have more chances and opportunities in transition.
Yeah, I thought pretty poor second half from Villa. Didn't do much. Felt like they could have put Man City under a little bit more pressure. Subs probably didn't work in hindsight. I mean, I guess they're not going to work to the extreme that Villa have had substitutes working in recent weeks, but I did feel like we got worse when subs were made. None of them really came on and had any real major impact into the game compared to the players that they were replaced. First half, I actually thought we were really good, although that didn't seem to be a popular opinion when I tweeted that at half time. I thought it was a good half, good start, could have gone ahead very early doors with Rashford hits the post, and then we've got back into the habit of conceding off the first shot in a game. That's happened the last couple of games. We'll come on to the goals that Villa conceded later on. Responded well, won a penalty. I think it was a penalty in my opinion, and Rashford dispatched it very, very nicely. And then I thought first half we were good, caused them problems in transition. The way we kind of built up from the back, I felt we played through the lines really well. Great runners, great movement from the front players, and I thought we carried a real threat. And I thought probably shaded the first half. Second half, I didn't really think we did any of those things that I've just mentioned. And we've been on a great run in the Premier League. We've won a lot of games in a row. I think we were the form team in Europe before the game was played. So naturally, at some point, you are going to lose a game. But unfortunately, the margins are so fine in that race for the top 5, and we've now played a game more than everyone else and lost ground on Man City. Losing in that way in the 94th minute is probably going to be costly come the end of the season.
Yeah, my overall thought is that Villa will look back at this particular game and that will be the moment that it goes away from them, the top 5 chase and the chase to get into the Champions League next season. I hope it isn't, and I hope Villa are able to win all of their last games, which I think they absolutely need to do, and then other results go their way. So I hope it isn't, but I think that will be the moment that they'll look back on and say that was where it went away from us. Obviously, if Villa don't get Champions League, you can look at other games in the season and in the league where Villa could have done better or taken points where they didn't. And it won't be solely down to that Manchester City game, but I think it will be. And I think you look at the reaction as well from Emery at the end. head in hands,
He knew.
looking to the sky. I think the players as well, down on their knees. I think they knew. Jacob Ramsey said in the pre-game interview at the Etihad that whoever wins this game tonight is going to be taking Champions League football next season, whether that's Manchester City or whether that's Aston Villa. So I think the importance of the game was not lost on anybody who is a part of Aston Villa last night. And I think the fact that Villa have lost it so late says to me that it could well be the moment where Champions League goes away for next season.
Yeah, it's a proper bogey ground as well, isn't it? It's actually probably a worse ground for us than Old Trafford, and we're pretty bad at Old Trafford. We just can't seem to do it in Manchester, as Z just said there in the chat on YouTube. You've said at the start, and we've put it in the title, Villa have to win every game now, really. And even if they do, that still doesn't guarantee it, but it would give themselves a good shot. I think the fixtures are okay. Obviously, I've just alluded to the fact that Villa aren't very good at Old Trafford, so that's the game on the final day of the season. But they've put themselves, to be fair, they've put themselves in a really strong position in recent weeks because they have won an awful lot of football matches. And unfortunately, the weekend, the round of fixtures game, the results probably didn't really go for us, even though we beat Newcastle, obviously Chelsea winning, Forest winning as well. The results weren't brilliant for Villa in that kind of landscape. But they've done well to get themselves into the position they're in. A lot of other teams have fell away. But they've now, unfortunately, just by virtue of that result last night, they probably do have to win.
Yeah, and the goal difference is essentially an extra point as well. So
yeah, it's a killer, the goal difference.
I mean, I would actually say that Villa might well go on and win the final four as well. Fulham, Bournemouth, Spurs, and Manchester United. There's reasons why you could suggest that Villa would win all of those games. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But it feels a tall order and I know the other teams obviously have difficult fixtures as well, and fixtures that they could slip up during. I just think it's probably a little bit too far now.
Yeah, it needed Forest to buckle on Monday night against Tottenham, didn't it? And
yeah.
I mean, if there's any team you don't want someone who you need to lose a game to be playing, it's probably Tottenham, especially at Tottenham as well. Credit to Forest, they bounced back really, really well there. But I think even that result on Monday, I thought I could have done with them feeling like they're in a bit more of a sticky patch, and it feels like they've got out of it now. We've got other things to focus on this weekend, of course, but the margins in the Premier League are so slim. And even if we, say how well Villa have done recently, I think at the end of the season we'll look back at that City game. We'll also look back at what we did in the first half of the season when the squad perhaps wasn't built to manage and wasn't capable of managing everything that they were supposed to. There's some sickness in there as well that could prove costly come the end of the season.
Yeah, and as I say, I think although we might look back at the Manchester City fixture last night and say that was the moment, there's obviously going to be other games during the season that you can look back on and say Villa should have taken more points. And the first half of the season is the obvious place to look, really, where Villa probably could have taken more points, and they've almost left themselves a little bit too much to do. And although it has been a gigantic effort in the second half of the season, it feels like they've just left themselves a little bit too much to do. And, it feels like maybe we're being a little bit too down here because the race is still open and anything can happen. There will still be twists and turns, and there's a possibility that Villa could still do it. So you have to highlight that point as well.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about around the game last night. A lot of people in the YouTube chat are talking about things that I want to talk about. So I'm not going to go through and do a play-by-play of the game. I don't think anyone really wants that this morning after a 94th minute defeat. But I'm going to focus on a few key topics. I hate doing this. It's like I find it embarrassing me calling out. No, I'm not even calling out, but I always feel it embarrassing. One, me whenever I have to question Unai Emery, and two, certain players. I just want it to be embarrassing when I have to ask questions about them because I love them all to bits. They're brilliant footballers. They've been brilliant for Villa. They've got Villa to where they are today, and it's the best ever team I've ever seen Villa play. Sorry, ever seen Villa have. But the two goals, especially the first, the goalkeeper is culpable, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to look at it. I mean, you can criticize maybe some of the defending, but I think look, I think Emi Martinez is his own harshest critic as well. So I think he will look back at that and think he could have done better. And that's not to say that we're massively criticising him because he's dug Villa out of holes so many times, but I think there has been moments where he's not been at his best. I think that's totally fair to say.
Yeah, the first one, it's kind of goal you don't see very often. Look, I'm not a goalkeeping expert. I was a good keeper back in the day, in fairness, but I'm not a goalkeeping expert, so I don't know about hand positions and where your body should be. But it didn't look right when you saw it back on the replay. He's kind of palmed it down onto his own leg, and it's gone in. Gary Neville was asking some questions about it as well. And fundamentally, to me, while saying I'm not a goalkeeping expert, positioning of body didn't look great, and technique of save didn't look great. And again, I say that it's embarrassing that I'm saying these things.
Yeah, I think you also have to think about the amount of football that Emi Martinez has played is astonishing. I think he's also been carrying injuries quite a lot of the time,
Yeah,
and has, like a number of the Villa players over the last couple of years, has played through those injuries. So I think you have to factor that in. Whether it's a concentration thing, whether it's a kind of reactionary, the fact that he's had big game after big game after big game, the concentration levels, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a goalkeeper expert either, but if there's kind of ex players questioning that, and Shay Given as well in the studio for Sky,
I did. I didn't. I
then
turned the
you kind
TV
of
off at the end of the game, mate.
you kind of have to kind of look at those opinions and take stock of them. So I think, and as I say, Amy Martinez will be looking at that thinking he could have done better. I don't think there's any doubt about the first goal.
Yeah, Big Cuts messaged me this morning actually, so I might ask him about it and he'll give me a fairer reflection, I think, of what's gone on there. Emmy did an interview not that long ago, and he did kind of say he doesn't think he's had a good season. So I'm sure actually he wouldn't mind us talking about it. But I do feel more so, and I'm not saying we should replace him or I don't want him in goal or anything like that, because I love him and I'd have him as the keeper for the rest of his career. I think he's that good, and in my opinion, all goalkeepers make mistakes, and he's the best goalkeeper in the world. And he did an interview with Jamie Redknapp a few weeks ago, didn't he, where he said he thinks he's arguably the best because when he makes a mistake, it doesn't let him affect him. But more so this season than any other season with Emi Martinez, I've looked back at goals and thought, I think he should have done better there. There's been a few games where I feel like he's got a big hand on something, or something's got through him that maybe shouldn't have got through him, or hasn't previously got through him. Do you think that's fair?
Possibly, yeah. I think the other thing you have to kind of consider is that Villa haven't really defended well as a
Oh
team
no, not until
this
recently
season.
anyway.
So yeah, not until recently. So you have to say that although he maybe has made a couple of mistakes, I don't think really the players in front of him have done amazingly well at defending, or certainly when you think about defending, I'm not just talking about the back four. I'm talking about the whole team really as a defensive unit. So yeah, I think there has been times where he's letting goals that maybe he shouldn't have. But also, I'm just sat here thinking about that save against Nottingham Forest at their ground, which was like unbelievable. And still, the amount of times you watch it, you can't get your head around how he's managed to save it. So he's still coming up with those moments. I think maybe it's just the consistency across the season that has had a slight dip this year. And in terms of being the best, I mean, look, I'm not going to get into the argument because a lot of people that I work with think that it's Alisson who's the best goalkeeper in the world. But I can see the argument why Emi Martinez is the best goalkeeper in the world. And I can also see the argument that Alisson is the best goalkeeper in the world. It's splitting hairs, really.
Yeah, and sorry to Emi. I know for a fact that some of his entourage / family watch this show. I don't like doing this. I don't like picking someone like Emi Martinez apart, but I think you should say the first one. And then the second, again, I don't want to unpick the game in order particularly because it's not going to make anyone feel any good. I thought the second goal was quite weird as well, in honesty. I mean, both Villa's goals, in fairness, before it gets to anything to do with Emi Martinez, you have to stop crosses. You have to do more to stop crosses and make crosses difficult. And on both occasions, the ball's come across the box hard and low and got through. Not defended the cross well, not defended the ball into the box well. That's pre Emi Martinez. I don't know whether it looks worse on the replay, and in real time it doesn't look as bad. But kind of because it comes across and he kind of goes to the floor, I think that was even a bit weird, and that makes the finish for Núñez a lot easier than if he just kind of followed the ball and stayed on his feet. I'm aware that he doesn't know what's kind of behind him and what's arriving, so he'll feel probably that he has to dive to cover himself in case of Manchester City players throwing themselves at the ball. But by virtue of him doing that, I think it's made Nunez's finish a lot easier, and we've lost the game. But I feel like me picking on the goalkeeper for that goal is much more harsh than me picking on the goalkeeper for the first goal.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be too critical over the second goal, to be
Okay.
honest. I think when I saw it in real time, it happened so fast, and you're talking split-second decisions here. You're talking not even like
Yeah, of course.
2/10 of a second to make a decision there, and it comes across the box so fast that when you see it in real time, I didn't look at the goalkeeper at all. Obviously, when you slow it down. It's
Oh,
it's
he looks worse.
it's easier to pick on people. So, but actually, I think it's harsh any criticism for that second goal for the goalkeeper. Personally, it should have been stopped higher up the field. I have a little bit of sympathy for Disasi because he's come on against two incredible dribblers in recent weeks in Kvaratskhelia and Jeremy Doku, and it's been there've been kind of two highlights real goals really where he's not managed to stop the dribbler. So yeah, I mean you can question the decision to take off Matty Cash, who I thought was actually having a good game, but I
They're
assume
managing him, aren't they? That's the
yeah,
problem. They're
I
worried about him and Mings, so they're
of
managing their
course.
minutes.
Yeah, and that's the stage of the season we're at. You're managing. Matty Cash has broke down a couple of times this season. You know, it was an hour mark decision. You're going to play an hour, and then you're going to be coming off. So, does Axel Disasi need to be more ready? Does he need to be working on the mental side of the game because he has come on and he's been involved in two goals recently, and now is that going to be in his head when he's on the bench, or if he's not starting games, that when he's coming on he's going to be feeling cold? Does he need to do something different in his preparation? Does he need to be offered a little bit more protection when he's coming on, if he's coming on in a right back slot? Does he need someone like John McGinn in front of him just for the first 10 or 15 minutes while he gets into the rhythm of the game? Or he can go completely back to the drawing board and go, look, I need to improve my 1v1 defending because I'm going to be coming up against top wingers every week. This is the Premier League. This is European football. I've come from a club like Chelsea who think that I'm not going to be part of their long-term future probably. So this is down to me to make myself a better player. I just think it has been hard for him to come on, but also there's part of me that thinks he could be doing slightly better and making better decisions in the moment. I have sympathy for him because he's not playing every week and he's coming on for kind of snapshots in games, and that's difficult. But I don't really know what the way around that is, apart from him making himself readier maybe than he has been. I don't know.
Yeah. Second thing I wanted to discuss was Morgan Rogers as the right 10 again. Thought he didn't have a good game. Couldn't really get into the game. If ever he did, he was fouled. I thought he cut a frustrated figure throughout the game. He's obviously going back to a place where he wants to shine and he wants to show how good he is. And he got pulled with about 5 minutes plus stoppage time left for Daniel Marlin. Unai Emery spoke about how critical he is to what Villa do. So I get that even if he's not having a great game, the way Villa play, Morgan Rogers is still quite fundamental to that, even if it's an off night, which I think we can all agree that's what last night was. So he's left on for pretty much the duration of the game. We've spoken before on the show about him being on that right-hand side as a number 10, and I don't think it's doing him any favours. I think it becomes worse and becomes harder when it's not Cash at right back. So for the last 25 minutes he was on the pitch, he's got a centre back playing behind him at right back, so there's absolutely no width offered down that side whatsoever. He then has to hold his width, carry the width a little bit more than you would like him to. So fundamentally at that point he doesn't become a right 10. He's then a right winger, which isn't really where you want Morgan Rogers. But Emery loves him. Emery wants him on the pitch. I trust Unai Emery, but he didn't have a good night last night at all, did he? Could there have been a case that Marlon, once Disasi's come on for Cash, Marlon could have been on a bit earlier to hold some width down that side, and Rogers either comes off or moves to a different position, and we don't make one of the other subs that we made, and we get Rogers in a position that's going to hurt Man City more than him being stuck on the right
Yeah,
side.
I think also though all of those things would have been considered during the game. As you say, we've discussed this before about Rogers playing in a wide role, and I'm not sure it completely brings out the best in him. I think the other side of that was he would have wanted to do something special against Manchester City. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that now. Whether he built that up a little bit and kind of maybe trying a little bit too hard, maybe that's a bit unfair. But I do think he's better either as the second striker or the 10 or from the left-hand side. But it seems like at the moment that's where he's going to play, because the options, I guess, wide right would be John McGinn or Daniel Marlon. There was obviously no Leon Bailey last night. I don't think Emery was asked about Bailey in the post, but I may have missed that if he was. So the options wide right are John McGinn or Daniel Marlon, obviously two very different players who offer you something very different. And I guess what he was thinking around Manchester City was, if we can play almost with three number 10s essentially and play narrow, that is what you can beat Manchester City. And that is how they kind of did it against City at Villa Park, with Rodgers running in behind the midfield, and it seemed to work. So yeah, look, again, Morgan Rodgers is an amazing player. He is a big part of Aston Villa's future going forward. His versatility is incredible. He's had a brilliant season, and it's not often that he gets taken off at the end of games.
No, I did think what you've just said. I did think that they did do that in the first half, and the plan did work. In the first half, it worked after 30 seconds, or less than 30 seconds, when we nearly went 1-0 up. I quite liked against City that we went with Tielemans as the 10 and Onana and Kamara in the midfield as well. I thought that would give the attacking players a chance to break the lines and shine, and it did do that. And Lewis 88 saying here, I liked the combination of Kamara and Onana. I didn't think Kamara was his usual self, although he always plays the game to a really high standard. But I said defensively, before he got taken off in the second half, I thought Onana was really good.
Agreed. Yeah, one of his best performances, I would say, in a Villa shirt. I thought he was excellent. Got about the pitch. His frame means that he kind of eats up the turf. He's able to cover a lot of ground. And I thought he was good on the ball for the most part. And he had a really good game. So I think he's given Unai Emery a decision to make, because he's played against PSG. He's played now against Manchester City as well. And I think it could be one of those players that, again, has taken time to adapt to things, and he's had his injury issues and struggling for game time and rhythm in the game. And, maybe he's coming into his own towards the end of the season, which is great for him because he's a great character.
Yeah, I will say, if you play Onana and Kamara and Tielemans further forward, I think, again, I keep saying it, but it sounds like me questioning Unai Emery, which isn't great. It's not what I'm doing, but maybe you need a bit more verve at fullback, and I think Maatsen would give you that over Luca Dean, but they're very much rotating at the moment. But I think if you've got that firmer midfield, I think you need the pace and the directness of Maatsen at left back rather than Luca Dean, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess that the issue that you've got with Man City is that their wide players are unbelievable. And if you're slightly concerned about Maatsen in a 1v1 defensive situation, Luca Digne offers you that. So it's
He was good as well, really. In fairness, I'm not criticising Luca Digne.
So it's a trade-off, isn't it? Every time you make a selection, it's a trade-off. What you get with Maatsen is his ability to go forward. You saw that against Newcastle. And actually, I thought he defended pretty well as well against Newcastle. And then with Luca Digne, you get the obvious solidity defensively. And then also you're able to kind of use him as a width option as well and a crossing option. So it's always a trade-off when you're selecting these players.
Yeah, and the selection of Rashford over Watkins, of course, dominated a lot of the pre and the post-match talk. I was on TalkSport this morning, and I was asked about it. And again, I mean, we call it wrong every week, as we know, with who's going to play up front, and we'll probably call it again wrong for the FA Cup semi-final on Saturday. But in the first half, in particular, I thought Rashford was really good. I think you can see the work that's being done with him one-on-one with the attacking coaches and with Emery, and that he's following instruction of what they want him to do. Goals from open play haven't really been there when he's played as a centre forward, but all-round game, I think some of his movement and his raw pace and power is absolutely frightening, and they were terrified of him in the first half, Manchester City, and it was just working really well, him dovetailing, because he drifted to the left as well. I asked a few questions about Ramsey in one of our previous shows. I thought Ramsey was really good in the first half, obviously winning the penalty. as much as I love Ollie Watkins, and even if I'm picking a Villa 11, I'm probably putting Ollie Watkins in there. I think Rashford was brilliant again. Like he does offer us something with, and without having scored those goals from open play yet, his penalty was excellent. You could really see in a high level football match playing against a really good team how good Rashford is.
Yeah, if we'd have done a preview, I'd have picked Rashford to start the game against
Oh, you
Manchester.
said, oh well, you can sit here and say that now, Dave. Give you the big one now, but I'm not sure you would have done after off the back of Watkins scoring.
Dear, no, I definitely would have.
Did we call Watkins to play against Newcastle? I'm not sure if we
I
did or
did.
not.
I think I
Oh,
did.
cool. Okay.
I think I did.
Yeah. You never get it wrong.
No, never. Yeah. So, I thought Rashford had another good game, and I'm kind of warming. Not that I wasn't warm to him, but look, the bottom line is, and this is not Marcus Rashford's fault, by the way. I want to make that absolutely clear. This is not Marcus Rashford's fault, because as a footballer, you get the best contracts that you can get. But essentially, the money that he's earning means that he has to, or an expectation from the outside, probably isn't the expectation inside the club, certainly from Aston Villa right now, because he's not a permanent Aston Villa player, but the financial package at Manchester United that Marcus Rashford is on leaves people from the outside thinking that he needs to play and have an impact like a prime, for instance, last night, a prime De Bruyne. The financial package suggests that he has to drag teams through games. He has to score 20 goals a season. And again, this is not Marcus Rashford's fault. So as an outsider, you're always thinking about, unfortunately, as a football fan now, you're thinking about PSR and finances.
Yeah, it's crap.
Rather than actually what's happening on the pitch. And if you put the financial stuff to one side, what's happening on the pitch right now for Marcus Rashford is very good. And he is performing, and I feel like he's improving as the weeks go on. And I think when it gets to the end of the season, he'll actually be thinking, I don't want this season to end, because I'm starting to get on a roll. I'm getting rhythm. I'm getting minutes. I've found a position and a club which is looking after me, and it's great for him. And I think it's great for Aston Villa at the moment, because he is showing signs that he can get to a very high level. And I thought he had another good game against Manchester City. There was the chance, which I was really impressed with, the chance in that opening 30 seconds.
It worked it really well.
The technical touches were great. So early in the game, he's come into that game hot, which is great. A great sign, the fact that he's on it from the first whistle, because when he receives the ball from Tielemans, there's a couple of touches there, which if you're not quite into the game, they can go away from you. So I was really impressed the fact that he managed to get that under control. And then he's got the shot away. Very unfortunate that it's not gone into the back of the net. So yeah, again, I was very impressed with him. Really impressed. And if he can keep going that way, I think there'll be lots of clubs looking at him in the summer, including Aston Villa. It just depends what competition Villa are in next year.
Yeah, I don't want to do the dialogue that that we've done over the last few weeks, whether it's Watkins v Rashford, and I'll post what I said on TalkSport onto my social media. So I won't do it now, because I'm aware that we end up sometimes talking about exactly the same things on a podcast every week, and I don't really want to do that. I have a slight theory that's come to me whilst we've been doing this show. I don't know how true it is, because, as I say, it only come to me in the last minute or so. So it's not very well. It might not be as well founded as it could be. So if Rashford is starting the game, my theory is if you're gonna bring Ollie into that game, you've got to do it earlier than we did it last night. You've got to do it earlier than we did it against PSG in the second leg, and you've got to look at doing it in a way like we did against Southampton. And I know it was only Southampton, who are absolute pish. But if you're bringing him into that game, he's got time. You've got half an hour. You're giving him half an hour then, and he's obviously got his goal against Southampton. If you're giving him 10, 15 minutes, I almost think you may as well keep Rashford on at that point. I didn't think Rashford looked tired last night. He's got more raw pace than Watkins in transition, can probably hurt teams a little bit more. If you're going to do it, I think you've got to do it more on the earlier side, because I've noticed a pattern of when he has come on in this recent period, he's done better when he's had more minutes, which, he's self-explanatory almost. But do you see what I'm saying? You bring him on with 10, 15 minutes left, I feel like it's almost worth not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got the numbers or kind of brain power to think about when he came on, when John Duran was there earlier in the season, and whether there was a similar thing that happened
I don't
there.
remember him ever coming on for Duran and it working.
So I don't know whether it's a bit of recency bias, because the PSG situation, Villa were flatter when the subs were made, and again against Manchester City, Villa seemed to retreat a little bit when the subs were made, which I thought would go the other way. So there's something in that. Look, I think it's been hard for Watkins to make an impact in the short amount of time that he's been on the field, and especially when I think it's made the conversation, because Rashford had played pretty well up to the points that he was taken off. Obviously, against PSG, the 20 minutes in the second half where he was unplayable, and I thought the level of his play against Manchester City was kind of at a good level for a longer period of time than against PSG. So, yeah, I think there's something in that theory. Whether then the decision needs to be thought about, do we bring them on together for a period of time? I'm wondering. I've had a sneaky thought that potentially both might start against Crystal Palace.
Whoa, that's wild. I think that's way off the mark.
Spicy take.
That is, I mean, save it for the Crystal Palace preview.
Maybe that was just because I was up late last night. But
yeah, save it for Palace preview. Yeah. I think that's way wide of the mark. Let's argue about that when we do our Crystal Palace preview for sure. Is there anything else from the City game that you want to discuss before we have a NordVPN advert break?
I think Nord are vital, aren't they?
Yeah, let's get Nord in. Maybe think of any. I'll have a think whilst the NordVPN advert runs, see if I can come up with any new theories. And see, yeah. So let's run the Nord advert, and then we'll pick this up.
is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too.
Oh, technical problems there. Nice cut off at the end of the NordVPN.
Very sharp.
Probably time to do that again. It's a few years old. It probably needs doing again. I would suggest. Right, I didn't come up with any theories in the meantime when the Nord advert was running. I just looked at my phone.
Brilliant.
Did you come up with anything that you wanted to?
I was just thinking about how you kind of drag the players up, because it's obviously there's a massive game at the weekend. A lot of mental energy and physical energy has been expended in the last couple of weeks, and now they've got another huge game. Daniel, that was all my thought.
Yeah, well, let's have a little look at the league table there. A little shufter at the league table. There it is up on the screen. So for audio listeners, obviously you can't see that because you are listening via audio. So we've narrowed it down now to the top 7. Villa on 57 points with a vastly inferior goal difference to Chelsea in 6th on 57 points. Newcastle in 5th on 59. Nottingham Forest are 4th with 60 points. Manchester City now level on games with Villa, having played 34, have 61. All the other teams I just mentioned have played 33 games. So Villa 4 points off 3rd, Man City, which is okay. Now the other 3 teams above us having a game in hand leaves us, we could be 3 points behind Chelsea by the time we play our next league game. And obviously that's 4 points essentially because of their goal difference. So as nicely as I thought the league table was shaping up after Saturday's 4-1 victory, I equally now don't think it's shaping up nicely looking at the league table after this game, Dave.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I, I'm struggling. I am struggling to see Villa getting into that top 5 now because, yeah, you're essentially needing not just one but two teams to dip. And we've mentioned this before. Every time I feel like Nottingham Forest is going to dip, they just come back and start winning games. So
Annoying.
all Villa can do is just win the games in front of them, and then see what happens. I mean, I've been fairly consistent that Villa would finish around 7th. I hope they don't. I hope they finish higher. And I still think even if Villa finish 7th, it will be an outstanding season from what the team have achieved this year. Obviously, you'd like them to go and beat Palace as well. I don't think that's a negative thing to say. I think it's been a brilliant season, even if Villa finish 7th, because they've been in the hunt for a long time for Champions League football. They've done amazingly well in the Champions League this season and the FA Cup run as well. There will be obviously a tinge of disappointment if they don't go and beat Palace, but I think if Villa gets to the FA Cup final, it will be a brilliant season.
Yeah, I think if you get to the final, you've got to win it. It's no good getting to the final and not winning it is insane. We finished 6th or 7th. We got to a final. That's a good season because once you get there, you've got to win it. I think 6th is where we will finish at the moment. Looking at that, but on Saturday I felt like we were going to get top 5, and I felt like we could get 3rd. So it does change on a weekly basis. I think we're better than Chelsea. I think we've got more than Chelsea. So I think we will finish a minimum of 6th place. Chelsea will have European distractions as well. I know they play different teams in the games, but I think as it goes on, for their season, if they're not going to get Champions League, Conference League probably does come a little bit important. I just want to ask you, if Villa qualify for the Europa League and win the FA Cup and finish 6th, Champions League quarterfinals, obviously that's a really, really strong season. And consistent European qualification of any form is really, really important. I saw a stat earlier that said even if Villa qualify for Europe in any form this season, they're the first side outside of the stereotypical top 6 to qualify for Europe 3 years in a row. So that's a really big achievement if they do that. I know we all want to be in the Champions League because it's absolutely great. It was a great run. We all loved it. And the Champions League is where players want to be. It's where the manager wants to be. And it's where we want to be as fans as well. If we did finish in the Europa League places, let's say, and, we had the Conference League last season. We've had the Champions League this season. Europa League is a different competition. It holds more pedigree than the Conference League, I would say. If Villa were to be Europa League next season, in some ways, realistically, Villa to win the Champions League is a huge, huge ask. We don't know what's going to happen in the summer. Villa got into the Europa League, then suddenly next season, thinking of the season after here, you've got 2 avenues of getting into the Champions League because you've got the challenge of the league, but actually you're more likely to win the Europa League than you are the Champions League as a club of Villa's size. So the next season becomes exciting because you've actually got 2 avenues to get in the Champions League. Look, I still want to qualify for the Champions League. I'm not suggesting for 1 second it's better to qualify for the Europa League than it is the Champions League. But do you see my point that in the Europa League you've got 2 shots at qualifying for the Champions League the season after a better shot at probably winning a trophy. It's definitely a better trophy than the Conference League. I'm still not sure about the Conference League myself, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, but when you're in it, Dan, come on.
No, I was never that bothered by the Conference League. To me, it was top 4 over Conference League every day of the week. Whereas if we finish top 6 and get Europa League and win the FA Cup, I'm happy with that, I think.
Say that again. If Villa win the FA Cup,
top 6 and win the FA Cup and we're in the Europa League next season, I think that's a phenomenal season.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas 5th last year, not getting Champions League and winning the Conference League, I'm not sure that would have pleased me.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I guess that's your opinion, isn't it? I was always
whether you share those values, Dave.
Well, I was always a fan of the Conference League. I thought,
it was a bit of a novelty, I guess.
But there's nothing better than winning a trophy, and you're feeling it. I know that it's the FA Cup and it's different competition, but you're feeling it this year with the potential of winning the FA Cup. You saw the scenes with Newcastle. There's nothing better. You saw the scenes with West Ham when they won the Conference League. There's nothing better than winning a trophy. And I agree that actually, you see with Tottenham and Manchester United this year, they're desperate to win the Europa League.
I can't get on board with the fact. I can't get on board that we might not get in the Champions League, but yet one of them could finish 17th in the Premier League and be in the Champions League this season. That's a travesty.
So they are absolutely desperate to win the Europa League. And if Villa are in the Europa League next season, they will go into it as one of the favourites to win the whole competition, which is a different dynamic, actually. I think when Villa were in the Conference League, yes, they were favourites, but were they a little bit under the radar because people around Europe haven't really seen them and tackle European competition? It was Thursday, Sunday. How were they going to cope? So maybe there was a little bit less expectation. Then Champions League, very much no expectation particularly. I think within Villa Park, there was some expectation that they would qualify for the knockout rounds. And after the draw, I think there was even more confidence within the club that they could qualify for the knockout rounds. But it'd be a different season next season if Villa are in the Europa League, because there will be expectation on them to go and go deep in the competition and probably go and win it. And that is not only a different feeling for that group of players, but I think for Villa as a football club as well. And I think the other thing you have to think about is just the building blocks of the club as well. I'm talking about obviously the bottom line is if Villa achieve winning trophies and achieve stuff, that is obviously success. But I think even if Villa don't go and win the FA Cup, that you can feel the club is building, and every season there's been progression on the pitch. I think there's been progression in the playing quality. I think the manager's progressed. I think, and the club as a whole is trying to progress off the field and on the field. So I'm kind of thinking about that at the same time as, Villa want to achieve on the pitch by winning stuff, but also I can see things happening on the pitch, which shows me that next season they're going to be challenging again.
Yeah,
the numbers are consistent when you look at the underlying numbers for Villa this season. That they're, it's not like they're wildly overachieving their numbers like Forest are. And if Forest variance the other way next season, they're going to be down the bottom of the league. So that's how wild their season has been. That's not to say Forest won't be consistent again next season. That's just the fact of the numbers this year. So I can see the consistency is there, which gives me confidence for next season that Villa are going to be able to achieve again and be in that Champions League hunt again and be deep in competitions again, because everything is going in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. I take your point, but someone just said it in the chat there and I've lost it now. You keep saying if we don't win the FA Cup, I think it's going to sound harsh and I don't mean it to. If we finish 6th, so one place outside the Champions League places, and don't win the FA Cup, I think I think that ends up being a disappointing season, unfortunately.
Fine margins.
Because you're then just the wrong side of two things. You can almost take being the wrong side of one thing and then the other one coming through. But to be the wrong side of both, having known how many results we chucked away in the first half of the season, right? You just think now if we had the 4 extra points against Ipswich, look how much better off we'd be. We'd be thinking there we're going to get top 5, we're going to get the Champions League again next season. I think if you finish 6th just outside the Champions League places and you don't win the FA Cup having got this far, I think you'll struggle to be happy with that as a Villa fan. And that shows the standards as well, by the way.
Yeah, it shows how far the club has come. Anything can happen in a one-off game. That's all I think about as well.
Yeah.
If you're facing Manchester City, and I'm overlooking Palace, which is dreadful, but if you face Manchester City in a final and you get a shocking refereeing decision, you get an own goal, you get something wild that happens like that. Those are the fine margins of a cup final, and Villa can play Man City off the park, which they have done previously, and still lose the game. So would you come away from that thinking, oh, that is a major disappointment? I don't know. It's hard, like in the day after, but in the cold, hard light of day in 6 months' time or in a year's time, would you look back at that and go, obviously it's a missed opportunity, but would you say, oh, it's a real disappointing season?
I think you can still look at it and say, well, we've made great strides and we've made really big progress over the last few years, because obviously we have. Like, we're a world away from where we were a few years ago, whatever happens. But I think you never want to be on the precipice or be labelled kind of a little bit like Arsenal over the last few years, although obviously they're going for a different kind of trophy to us. They've been going for the Premier League. And I've spoke to John Gregory about this before, and when he was Villa's manager, you don't want to be a nearly team. We nearly did this. We nearly did that. And if we finish 6th and we don't win the FA Cup, then essentially that's a nearly season, even though you've qualified for the Europa League, I think. If you finish 6th, that is still a nearly season. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. Totally understand. And it is. It is, but I still think Villa are, it feels to me still like Villa are in the early stages of something. It doesn't
course.
feel like this team is at their peak.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
I feel like Villa are still fairly early in their cycle, so there's still an opportunity there. If Villa were chucking out a team of plus 30 like Manchester City are, then you can kind of see, look, this team is going to need rebuilding. But it feels to me at the moment like Villa are still in the early stages of something. So I wouldn't have that feeling in the back of my mind that, God, this is going to be the only chance, the only opportunity.
No.
You'd feel like there would be more coming down the line. And the fact that these players are ones that haven't gone out and won loads of things domestically. Villa have one or two players that have done amazingly well at international level and won trophies elsewhere. But as a team collectively, I think they'll be better for the experience. You hope anyway. And Unai Emery will have learned something about these players, whatever happens this season.
Yeah, I think I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I know.
A little bit here, just kind of trying to gauge the feeling of things and how we might feel as Villa fans if certain things happen. I will caveat that and finish by saying, in the 2 seasons we've had Unai Emery, Villa have achieved their objectives pretty much in both those seasons, and they have gone through. Obviously, we didn't win the Conference League, but we got 7th in that first season and qualified for European football. We did that. Last season, we did get Champions League football in his first full season. So there's nothing to say that we won't finish top 5 and we won't win the FA Cup, or at least achieve one of those objectives this season. So they've proven, these players and Emery and the coaching staff and everyone at the club, they've proved this over the last couple of years that they have got the mettle. So I think it is worth also, despite what I've just said about being a nearly team, they have got that. They've got history, they've got previous, they've done what they've set out to do pretty much across the last 2-3 years. So that's really, really important when it comes to the business end of a season. Right then, Dave, I think that does us. Extended show today. So thank you very much for joining me for that. And thank you to those that have joined us live on the chat on YouTube as well. If you have listened via YouTube, it's really, really important that you like this video. If you could subscribe with your post notifications on. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe to us because it really, really helps us. And if you're listening via audio, Apple Podcasts, 5-star review and a lovely written review would be much appreciated. And on Spotify, if you could give us 5 stars as well and leave a comment on this episode, we'd all really appreciate it here at the channel. We'll get some content out over the next few days. Again, apologies, I didn't do anything over the weekend. I didn't communicate that. I should have just said that I was getting married, but I didn't. So I apologise for that. That's people messaging me the day of my wedding, wondering where previews are and where post-match shows are. And I was thinking, oh God, I'm literally about to get married. And people are tweeting me, asking me where the shows are. I probably should have just said something, but I didn't. And alas, we're here now. We're back. So there'll be shows pretty much every day, like they have been for the rest of the season. So there'll be something tomorrow, and there'll be, of course, a preview with myself and Dave Reid at some point as well, ahead of the Crystal Palace FA Cup tie. So, right, have a good rest of your Wednesday. Is it Wednesday today? I think it is. Yep, have a good rest of your Wednesday. Do all those things that I've just asked. And as always, we'll end with a Up the Villa.